Welcome to the Three Questions webcast series. I'm Wayne Baxter, Executive Director with One Capital Management. At One Capital Management, we develop and implement strategies that enable our clients to grow, protect, and ultimately distribute their wealth. And we do that by offering investment wealth management services. Thank you for taking time to check us out. My clients are often referred to as cross-border clients. Now, why is that? Well, it's because they're either U.S. or Canadian residents who invest in U.S. and or Canadian dollar-denominated securities like stocks, bonds, or ETFs. Our process for advising our clients includes an in-depth discovery and diagnostic analysis of their wealth management goals and objectives. Wealth management is multifaceted, and there are several areas beyond investment and retirement planning that need to be discussed and considered. In One Capital Management, we call that process advanced planning. Under the advanced planning umbrella, we will want to discuss with our clients their real estate goals and objectives. And if there's a need for financing, we'll discuss that as well. And for clients who will, For some clients, that focus will primarily be on their principal residence, while others, that discussion may focus on the purchase of a vacation property. On today's webcast, we're going to focus on our attention on focusing a vacation property in Mexico. On this edition of the webcast, we're going to ask the three questions Canadians should ask about purchasing property in Mexico. And joining me from Tijuana, Mexico is Juan Sanchez. Juan is a Mexican attorney who specializes in Mexican business law. He's a partner with Grupo Consultor, EFE, and a director of legal services for that firm. His practice is only in Mexico, and he's focused on real estate and business law. Juan has a broad experience in domestic and cross-border transactions. He is a true expert. Hello, Juan. It's great to see you again. Thank you for joining me today on the Three Questions webcast.
Wayne, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure being here.
Yeah, I can't help but smile. This isn't our first rodeo at doing any kind of webcast or Zoom cast. We should really point out that we've been speaking on this topic, and about a year or so ago, I guess it was in May of 2021, we did a whole segment informing our colleagues up in the Bay Area on cross-border planning and related to owning property in Mexico. That went really well. So you know what, I thought we should have you back for another segment here with me on the Three Questions webcast. And you really, when we did that Zoom call a year ago, you really demonstrated again your proficiency as it relates to purchasing power in Mexico. And I think what we should do really is focus on the basics today. We can maybe do another segment down the road. Why don't we just start off with the three questions a Canadian should ask before purchasing real estate in Mexico, and we'll focus on the first one to start here. And I got to admit, this will apply to an American resident as well, okay, to be fair. But the question is, can a Canadian actually own real estate in Mexico?
Yeah, I want to start with the short answer. And the answer is yes, you can. As a non-Mexican citizen or non-national, everybody from around the world can purchase property in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to address a couple of misconceptions that they are out there that I have heard plenty of times with my clients and people who are interested on buying real estate in Mexico and thinking that they may not be eligible to purchase or not legally capable to acquire real estate in Mexico. And I want to just clear that out and say that straightforward, it's not true. You can own property in Mexico. Some people ask me, well, I heard that I will not own property. I will have a 99-year lease. That's also not true. We don't have in Mexico 99-year lease. The leases are capped, and this is just not true. I mean, you can lease also as a non-Mexican citizen with its time limitations, but if you want to purchase, you can purchase. And that's the main reason that or the main misconception that we have. Do I lease or I cannot own? You can own property. We do have some restrictions in parts of Mexico, and you will not have to, instead of having a 9-year lease, does not exist, you can own property in Mexico.
Perfect. which perfectly you almost led right into it. Our second question is, what are the restrictions related to owning property in Mexico if you're a Canadian and you are a U.S. resident or U.S. resident?
Yeah, the main restriction in Mexico it's that we have a restricted area that goes all of the coast of Mexico, from the coast to 30 miles inland. It is restricted to own only by Mexican citizens, and I will explain further um, what do we mean on being restricted for only for Mexicans. If you want to buy on the border, whether it's or north or south border, the restriction area goes a little bit farther, and it's like 60 miles from the border, whether 60 miles south or north, depending on which border we're looking at. And that's it. Other than that, uh, within Mexico, within outside of this restricted area, we as non-Mexicans or the non-Mexicans can own directly. Um, I will tell you a little bit more about the restriction. The restriction will be that only Mexicans can own in this restricted area. What do we mean about that? It's that on the property, the title of the property needs to be held with a Mexican citizen or a Mexican legal entity. So non-Mexican citizens can structure an Mexican investment vehicle to acquire the real estate. We're talking about any kind of real estate. We're talking about residential. We'll talk about we're talking about commercial, industrial, whatever purpose may be, and depending on what will be the use of that property, the type of investment vehicle that we'll need to set up. But here in this case, non-Mexicans will indirectly own through a legal entity set up here in Mexico, and they will have the same rights and obligations as any other owner or Mexican owner in Mexico.
And that will apply both for residential and commercial.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so I got to ask, that's usually what happens when you and I get together. So the idea would be on the if someone who wanted to buy a property within 30 miles of the coast, which I can imagine would be probably the preferred choice of more than a few. The strategy is to basically set up a Mexican entity that the non-citizen would basically invest into, and then that entity would own the property. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that is correct. I want to point out that, as you said, plenty of people are looking into Mexico because of the nice ocean view, the beachfront properties. Those are the most popular within non-Mexican buyers. But if you're talking about going other popular places, um, in the middle of Mexico, like San Miguel de Allende, has been a very popular destination for people from Canada and the U.S. That it's outside of the restricted area, and non-Mexicans can directly own down there. So if we go outside of this restricted area, we don't need to look into what type of legal entity we need to set up in order for them to purchase the property.
All right. So we got through the first two questions. We got one more, which I think might be a little bit more detailed here. What are the steps required to purchase a property in Mexico from the point A of I want to buy a property. Actually, I want to buy a piece of real estate, and I want to spend my winters in Mexico. What are the steps required for a Canadian looking to make that happen? What do they need to do?
Yeah, I think first we need to be sure what kind of property are we talking about, or what kind of use are we going to have on the property. If you're looking to buy a beach house, for instance, which is very popular reason to purchase here, and we are going to use it ourselves just for personal matters. We're not going to have any commercial activities. We're not going to rent it out. We're not going to put it on Airbnb. We're not going to have any income out of it. We need to look at probably setting up a Mexican trust to be owned. That's the first thing that we need to address, or we need to have clear what is the type of use that that someone wants to have with that property. Um, the second, if it's gonna have some income out of that property, we're talking about whether it's gonna be uh, renting nights on Airbnb, having a commercial real estate, or another type of project that it's gonna have some income for the owners. We may be looking at a different corporation, a specific corporation that will be allowed to purchase, and that corporation will be allowed to have foreign investment in it, and therefore go and buy the property. Um, it is important to mention that we need to take into consideration the tax advantages of various or different types of legal entities that we have in Mexico, and to connect those dots, whether it's from people from Canada that make a tax and business decision tax wise, be in compliance with Mexican laws, and also with Canada or any local country that they file their tax returns, and make sure that the whole strategy is being set up tax efficient, and also, legal wise, will make sense for this. Those are the first two.
The key thing, though, I think you pointed out that drew my attention is the understanding of whether or not you're just going to purchase a property that you're merely going to enjoy and have no intention of using anything other than for your own personal use is very much different than if you want to actually. And this is actually goes back to the case study that we did in our presentation a year or so ago. In that instance, the case study was the person, in order to afford the payments, they actually did rent the property out for multiple months at a time, as you recall. So in the rules or the strategy that you're going to employ for them is really going to be contingent on whether or not it is going to be for personal use only, or are they going to use it for an income generating entity.
That's correct. Yeah, that is correct. I will also like to point out, it is also some of the questions that we get asked frequently. It's, do I need to have a residence in Mexico? Do I need to set up before a residence here in order to be able to purchase or to live here? And the answer is no. There's those are separate issues. And um, being able to live in Mexico, there are many ways that we can, if if we are looking into spending uh, more than 90 days, consecutive 90 days in Mexico, we may be able to look into you know get the visa, or the Mexican residence here, but it's not required to purchase property. It's not required to purchase property. It's not required to um, get into commercial activities down here. And just want to clear that out also, that there's no requirements in order to be a resident, in order to own indirectly a property, or to be a shareholder or a sole or 100% owner of a corporation that would own the property. That's two different things, and one, the rest, the immigration matters don't get in the way of buying the property. Where depending on what do we want to do with that real estate.
Okay, so for the person who's now decided, I just want to use the property for my own personal use, they then, as I understand it, they're going to set up this entity that will then, they will basically use that to own the property, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
And
correct.
then will they actually have that entity will have a bank account in Mexico that they will transfer the proceeds into before purchasing the property, or can they pay for the property directly from, in this example, the Canadian bank account? Can they pay directly from that, or does the money have to be transferred to Mexico first and then pay for the property from there?
Yeah, it can be both ways. Uh, Part of depending on the legal structure that we have, it will be the way that we will have to document or register all the payments. But yes, here's the short answer is yes. People can send the money from their Canadian bank accounts, but it will need to be taken into consideration either with a trust or the company set up. But yes, I mean it doesn't necessarily need to the money be funded directly through the new entity. There's ways that we can structure that way in order to to comply with the time limitations, or if there's any need to make it that way. Yes, it can be possible to the money be sent directly from Canada.
I have one additional question. In reality, I probably have multiple, but just for the sake of this webcast, I'll probably try to keep it to at least down to one. It comes to mind here. For someone who's seriously considering purchasing a property in Mexico, is how far in advance they should actually wait before they reach out to you. So, for example, they're saying, well, starting in 2024, I want to maybe look at buying a property. Like how soon should they start talking to you about getting help getting these entities set up and deciding whether they want to make it a commercial venture or only a personal venture? Like, what's the timeline for getting things established?
Yeah, I think that this depends on the urgency of the matters, but it could be from the time that they have found the property that they like to buy, and before they make an offer, or before they make a a a formal approach to either the broker or the seller directly. Um, in Mexico, there's some key players involved in the real estate transaction. One of them are the real estate agents. They're the notary publics in Mexico, which may not be or may not have the same um, powers or rights than any other countries. In Mexico, they have specific purpose in these cases, and I think that as soon as they want to give a formal approach or a formal offer, they should reach out to us. It's very important if there's any urgency on these matters, and they want to buy it as soon as possible, maybe a little bit before that, just to be able to be legally prepared to make the purchase. But if there's no urgency on that matter, we can start advising, or we always start advising our clients when they are starting to talk to the broker and they are serious about making an offer on the property. That when we get into starting the due diligence, it's really important for someone to have a local counsel that will look into the property and make sure that there's no issues with the title, there's no issues with, there's no any liens, there's no any easements, or there's no anything that will affect the use of that property, and actually and the buyers are actually buying what they told they were getting. We don't want that. I mean, as we don't want to buy something that will have some problems, or there's a ticking bomb and will explode in the future. We don't want that
Yeah,
to
we don't
happen to
want
our clients.
that.
We want to avoid that situation. So that's why it's really important for a buyer to have local counsel, to get that local counsel, do the due diligence on the property, and make sure that everything's good to go. Sometimes that due diligence is made before the offer is made. Sometimes we make an offer, we request for a time period to do a due diligence, and then we can keep moving with the acquisition process. But it's really important to make sure that local counsel at least is being brought into the whole transaction before making an offer, or before start making having serious conversations with either the seller or the real estate agent.
Well, we probably can expand this content on and on, but I think for today we'll just leave it at that. We have included your contact information on the screen, but for someone who's actually like very interested in maybe pursuing a purchase of property in Mexico and they're looking for your assistance, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Please feel free to send me an email, and I'll do my best to get back as soon as possible. Email is always good. We have our website also that has more information, has also our contact information for also people in charge of managing our prospect clients. But my door is always open. My email, I check my email on a daily basis, and I'll be more than glad that to get back to anybody has any other clients as soon as possible.
Thank you, Juan Sanchez. Juan is a Mexican attorney who specializes in Mexican business law. He is a partner with Grupo Consultor EFE and Director of Legal Services. Thanks again, Juan.
Thank you so much, Wayne. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and I'm very grateful to be part of your podcast.
I look forward to bringing you the 3 Questions webcast, and I hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. And to receive a notification as to when our latest webcast has been posted, please click on the notifications bell. Lastly, to schedule an online Zoom consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link in the description box below, www.onecapital.com/meetwithwayne. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.